I think it can help automate some tasks. All right, so if there's certain routine tasks that might be occupying a lot of a Scrum Master's time, what you're looking for is the ability to sustain the journey. Agile is a journey, it's not a destination. The construction industry, the folks that work in that industry, good people, but Agile's not their core mental model of how they operate.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Innovation Roots Studio. And today I have a very special guest with me for this interview. Hi, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good too, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today about the relevance of Scrum in 2024. And before we begin with our discussion, I would like people to know a bit about yourself, for the uninitiated especially. Ken is an agile thought leader, and he's the author of one of the best-selling books that is called Essential Scrum, a practical guide to the most popular agile process. His distinctive strength is his ability to successfully apply an agile mindset from the boardroom to the individual teams. And interestingly, he was also the first managing directors of the Worldwide Scrum Alliance, which is a non-profit organization that has certified over 1 million agile practitioners. So we are really excited to have you with us, Ken, and looking forward to this discussion.
I'm looking forward to it as well.
So, in your introduction, Ken, I said about your book, right? That you have written this Essential Scrum book. I
Mhm.
would really want to know what inspired you to talk about it and write this book.
No, thank you for the question. So back in the late 2000s, so 2008, 2009, I've been an agile trainer and coach since 2000, the early 2000s. I was frequently being asked for reference books. I go teach a class would end, and someone would say, "What's a good reference book that we could read about Scrum?" And they were looking for one that would provide a very comprehensive overview of the entire Scrum framework, and also talk about the various approaches that you would use when applying Scrum. An approach would be things like user stories, as an example. And at the time, there really wasn't a single book that covered these topics at really a level that was deep enough to be useful to a practitioner. So as a result, what I found myself doing was I would recommend a collection of books. It would be like a library of books that really discuss this. And a few discussed the Scrum framework, but they were either out of date or they were incomplete. Other sort of highly regarded Agile books of the day, they didn't focus solely on Scrum. And a handful that were focused on a specific aspect of Scrum or a specific approach, they didn't cover the whole framework. Certainly not in depth. And that's really a lot of books for someone who just wants like a single standalone reference. So I wrote the book to answer the question, to be the missing sort of single source for essential Scrum knowledge, which is where the name came from. And it got published in 2012, so it's almost 12 years now. And the good news is I feel like we met the goal, that it did become sort of that single source of Scrum knowledge. So that's the backstory behind how the book got written.
And that's pretty interesting. And as we're talking about the relevance, I think this book still stays relevant for the Scrum practitioners worldwide. So thank you for sharing that with us, Ken. And from the time you have written this book till now, the world has undergone a lot of changes. And today, the Scrum teams will be hugely influenced by artificial intelligence, maybe. So, according to you, how important is it for Scrum Master to improve their competencies to understand the nuances of AI and to utilize it appropriately?
So very topical question. The so unfortunately I'm older, and when I went to college in the 1980s, my focus was artificial intelligence, which goes in peaks and valleys, right? So back then it was peaking, right? Oh, AI, it's going to be the thing. And of course it wasn't. It came back down and then went back up again. It came back down again. It's different this time. It feels different. Things like chat GPT and others like that, have really taken things to the next level, to the point where it's actually, I find, to be a useful tool, right? And I've leveraged it myself in certain areas, especially if I'm trying to research into a particular topic. So I actually do think that AI can be an assistant, all right, to people doing Scrum, to Scrum masters and others. I mean, think of it. I think it can help automate some tasks. All right, so if there's certain routine tasks that might be occupying a lot of a Scrum Master's time, perhaps the AI can automate some of that for you. And then you as the Scrum Master, you can now focus on more strategic aspects of that role. Things like, for example, your AI is not going to manage impediments, right?
Mhm.
So that's a Scrum Master's job. But what if the AI could free up some of your time by taking more routine things? Let me give you an example. Data analytics and insights, right? So one of the things that good Scrum Masters do is they will look at the data that they're collecting, either through a tool set that they might be using or in any other fashion, and they have to analyze it. And they're analyzing it for insights into how is the team performing, what was the sprint like, how is this sprint similar to previous sprints, or how are we trending? Now, any good Scrum Master can get that data, can analyze that data, but that's one of those tasks that could easily be automated. The AI could go off and do that and present back a set of insights to a Scrum Master, who then can do the more interesting part of that, which is take those insights and make informed decisions about how to help their team continuously improve. You could even argue, I mean, something like that. My history is that of training and coaching companies, but I actually do think that AI systems can assist with that. They can assist with helping onboard new team members. They might be able to be there as an initial bounce any questions off of me first. And if you train the AI on specifically how our company does things, then the responses that would provide would be more contextual, right, and more specific. So if you're a large company with thousands of employees, it might very well be worth your effort to do that. So I actually do think that AI will play a more significant role moving forward. I think people now are just trying to, dip their toes in the water, see what it's like. But so far, from my experience, there are times when it gives wrong results, right? I'll ask a question, and I'll look at it, and I'll go, "Why did you say this? Because this seems wrong," and then I'll get an apology from the AI. "Oh, sorry, you're right. That was an incorrect response." So you have to be at least experienced enough to understand whether or not the information you're being provided is actually accurate. But so I'm assuming a newbie isn't going to try to use this like, "Hey, I'm an expert Scrum Master and I'm relying on the AI to do that." I don't think we're there.
All right, yeah, Scrum Master is there for a reason, I'm sure. And yeah, so Ken, over the past few years, we have seen that Scrum has, I mean, it's been breaking its boundaries beyond IT, and we have spoken a lot about it. Which are some of the new domains you see implementing Scrum in the coming years, which haven't tried it yet?
So to me, this is really important because I believe that full end-to-end agility is really the wave of the future. It's here today. I don't know that it's crossed the chasm, to use that metaphor. Whereas Agile and IT, right? Scrum and IT, that crossed the chasm years ago. It's mainstream, right? Most organizations do that. I mean, if you look at, like, there's the state of Agile report that comes out each year. It's now by a company called Digital AI. And in the latest version, which I think is like the 17th edition, so it's the 17th year they've done it, when you look at where, and one of the questions they basically ask is, where is your organization using Agile? Where is it using Scrum? And clearly the majority is in IT. You'll get, like, nearly 70% of the respondents will say something like IT. But if you start going beyond that, like business operations, I think the latest report that was close to 30%. Customer support, right? And just general services, also high. Little less marketing. Marketing's always been on everybody's tongue. It's, oh, marketing should be using Scrum. I've actually used marketing with Scrum organizations in the past. I've used Kanban with Scrum organizations as well. Human resources, so HR is doing it, finance, sales, and for me, I'm I'm building a new house, and I am actually using Agile to build a new house, and which is a bit odd because the construction industry, the folks that work in that industry, good people, but Agile's not their core mental model of how they operate. So when we interviewed people to work on our project, architects, and I'm talking about like literally building architects, general contractors, landscape architects, interior designers, lighting designers, people like that. The first thing I did is I sent them an email saying, here are the principles that we'll be using on this project. So please review, ask questions, let's discuss. And by the way, if these principles are so far afield from what you would normally do, just say so now. We don't have to work together, and that's okay. But if you agree that you're going to work by these principles, then I will hold you to that. All right, and you'll learn into it, and I'll help you with that. I don't expect you to know them all on day one, but you can't be violating these principles. And they agreed. Now I had to let two people go. Two of the professionals we brought on simply couldn't. The idea of fast feedback for them just didn't exist. As much as I would say I need faster feedback on this, we need quicker cycle times, couldn't get them to do it. I'm like, look, we're just not a good fit on this project, and we had to find somebody else. So even in the construction industry, I see basically I apply Agile everywhere. The most far field I've ever used it, religious organizations. I would help religious organizations manage their outreach work. There's nothing technical at all about that. I was helping an organization where they ran Scrum for their outreach. It was fascinating. So, do I think it can be used in other areas? Absolutely.
Yeah, construction using Scrum is such an amazing thought, and I'll keep that in mind when I'm building mine. So thank you for sharing that. Again, now, see, when we are at work, we undergo a lot of emotions throughout the day, not just a week or a month or during the project delivery time, but in a particular day itself, we undergo a lot of emotions. And we have been talking about emotional intelligence at work by the leaders and within the teams. How important it is as a crucial skill for the Scrum teams, according to you?
Oh, I think emotional intelligence is critical. It helps foster, collaboration, effective collaboration, communication among team members, and really just overall dynamics. I mean, so if you think about that, like effective communication, I mean, I found that teams with a high level of emotional intelligence actually communicate more effectively. They're better able to understand and express their ideas, right? And they can listen actively, right? And actually hear what people are saying. And they're better in a position to provide constructive feedback. And unfortunately, there's always conflict, right, that comes up. And I find that, since they're inevitable, conflicts are inevitable, uh, emotional intelligence really helps team members manage conflicts in a constructive way. I'm not trying to avoid conflict. It's going to happen. It's really how the team is able to handle conflict when it comes up that will make it successful. So I think high levels of emotional intelligence help with that. I actually think in terms of like a team cohesion, I think it helps contribute to a sense of team. You can be more adapt. You can, help understand and appreciate what other people's emotions are and how they like to work, because your style of working might be slightly different than my style, and I might, hence my point about interviewing people on the construction industry. This is my style of working, and I understand and appreciate you might have a different style, but this is the style that I'll be using, and it's my project, and I'm paying for it. So at the end of the day, let's agree that this is the style we can use. And if it's not your style, please just tell me. Being adaptable, so I actually, I just, the list would go on and on. Just I think continuous improvement, a hallmark of agility, right? I think being more self-aware, a willingness to learn, a willingness to grow. So yeah, I think teams that don't have high levels of emotional intelligence are probably at a significant disadvantage, and it would make it harder to be successful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, Ken. And since we're talking about the relevance and the trends, of Scrum in the year we are in and in the coming years as well. Do you see and would like to share some of the trends expected in 2024 in the Agile community?
So yeah, I can tell you what I see from the interactions I'm having. First, we've already talked about the whole push towards end-to-end agility. That's not necessarily a 2024 trend, it's a continuation of a trend that started several years ago, but I do think it's important. I actually think the big focus right now, given the economic conditions worldwide, and it's funny because all right, I'm in the US, and honestly, right now our economy is strong. Our markets are at some of the highest levels they've been, but there is this feeling in the background that it could get a lot worse. So even things clear, you could argue have been never better. They don't feel that way to a lot of people. So I think there's a lot of focus this year. Because remember how I see things is I'm out there doing training classes. I look at how companies are making decisions relative to doing that. They're being very cautious about where they're spending their money. There's focus a lot on trying to make things work. This era of, hey, let's try it, see how it's going to turn out for us. That's not the prevailing sentiment that I'm seeing right now. It's more like, first of all, let's get away from those things that aren't working. So if it's not working, let's stop doing that and move on. And I think there's a big push among the rank and file folks in organizations to really get management on board. I'm working with a number of companies right now where I have rather frequent conversations with them, and it's all about how do we engage our management more? How do we get them to understand better what we're doing? So I think there's this trend of like a lot of people are doing agile, and now I think a lot of the focus is on let's actually make this work, right, in our organization. I think we're past this point of how do we get more and more companies to do agile? It's how do we get more and more companies to be successful at what they're doing with agile? That to me feels like where things are focused right now.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that would be really helpful for the aspiring Scrum practitioners who are going to watch this discussion. Ken, we have spoken about a lot of things in this discussion. We spoke about your book, what inspired you, how AI is impacting, how Scrum is being used beyond IT, and what are the other domains we should use it in. One important discussion that's going around the world these days is sustainability, right? So, according to you, how can Scrum practices evolve to incorporate sustainability goals of the organizations?
Yeah, to me, this is very much related to the earlier discussion on what are the trends in 2024. To me, sustainability is companies often talk about being on a natural transformation. Oh, we're doing this transformation. I don't personally like that term because, or it's some idea that I understand what the end goal is. I'm here today and I want to be there at some point in the future. Now let's plan a path. And I find that funny because when I go into companies and they say, "Oh, we're looking for a coach that'll help us with our transformation, and the first thing we need you to do is give us a complete plan of how we're going to get from here to there." I'm like, "Oh, let me see if I can repeat that back to you." So on the day that we have the worst possible knowledge we'll ever have about the quote transformation, you want me to give you the complete, correct, and unchanging plan for how we're going to do that? Yeah, I'm not that good. All right, that's like going on the first day and asking for the complete requirement specification for a system you've never built before. So that doesn't really work. To me, what you're looking for is the ability to sustain the journey. Agile is a journey, it's not a destination, right? And it's like saying, oh, I hope this morning when I wake up, I'll be more agile. That's like saying, when I hope I wake up this morning, I'll be more flexible. Sure, I hope I can stretch a little bit further than I did the day before. I don't ever think I achieve flexibility. It's like saying, did I achieve agility? No, I just hope to be a little bit more agile every day, right? So sustainability to me is sustaining the journey towards this goal of continuous improvement. Now, I would also point out that I see a lot of these journeys, or I'll use the common term transformations, run into problems because of alignment, right? The journey doesn't seem to be clearly aligned with other more important business goals. And clearly the business goals will be more important. So if a company's on this large journey and all of a sudden they have a really bad quarter and they report very bad earnings, and the CEO, she decides that she needs to alter directions, you may say goodbye to your journey right there and then. So if you don't stay aligned with your business goals and help improve those business metrics, your sustainability will be low. And I guess the last point I'd say on that is, on an agile journey, you use agile to manage the work of an agile journey. I mean, to my earlier point, you don't do an agile journey by trying to take a waterfall style approach, right? You use agile to do agile. So these are, to me, some of the what I would consider better practices when trying to be sustainable in your overall journey.
Thank you. That's very important point that you have said. You have to be agile. You have to follow agile to be agile, not waterfall. It's a very
Yep.
small but very important thing. Thanks for sharing that, Ken. Uh, Thank you for answering all these questions. And with that, we will be moving on to the next round of this interview, where I would like to know a little bit more about yourself with some fun questions. So, are you ready for the rapid fire?
Yeah. At rapid fire. I love the rapid fire.
All right. So, your go-to food?
Chinese.
Wow, it's my
Love,
favorite too.
I love Chinese.
Your favorite day of the week?
Friday. I like
Yeah,
it gives me that feeling that the weekend's coming, and I had a good week behind, and I can do a retrospective and say, what did we get done, and take a break.
yeah, absolutely. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
It's changed. When I was a kid, I was a night owl. I could be up
Uh-huh.
till middle of the morning. These days, I'm absolutely a morning person. I'd rather go to sleep early and get up at 5 in the morning before the
Wow,
phone's ringing, the emails are showing up.
that's wonderful. Your favorite book?
Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. Um,
Right.
he's written a bunch of books, but anybody who's unfamiliar with the concept of anti-fragility really should read this book. It gives you a mental model, a lens through which you can start looking at different situations. So yeah, that book.
Yeah. And that's gonna be my last question. If you could live in any time period, be it past, future, where it would be?
I always thought that I wanted to go into the future. Hey, see if space travel was actually going to happen and stuff like that. But I have to tell you, I'm kind of worried about that now, given all the climate change and other things that are happening. Yeah, I don't fear as much for me. Maybe in my lifetime we don't see those issues, but in my kids' lifetime or their kids' lifetime, I'm concerned. So I would probably go to the past right now, so I could really see some historic events that actually happened, or to a time when things were not quite as strained as they are right now. So the future kind of worries me a little bit. So yeah, historically I would have said the future, but less so today.
All right, that's interesting. Ken, now we're coming to the end of this discussion, so I would like you to conclude it with an expert tip. Uh, if you can share mantras of success for uh, inspiring the Scrum Masters in 2024.
So I have a few. One of my favorite phrases is learn into it, meaning don't on the first day you're not going to know everything. So, but your ability to learn into the problem, learn to understand the problem you're trying to solve better, or learn into the solution is key. So as long as people are continuously learning, then I think they're progressing along a path that's useful for them. I would say another mantra would be champion continuous improvement, right? Aligned with the keep learning, right? So if I was a Scrum Master, I'd want to like instill sort of like a relentless pursuit of improvement in everything that the team is doing. Um, I would embrace change and use that to foster growth, right? I mean, embracing change is basically the heartbeat of agility, right? And it's the path to growth, right? I mean, you encourage your team to adapt, to learn, to iterate fearlessly, right? So you have to be thinking like that. And lastly, I guess I would just say empower, connect, and excel. Empower your teams to unleash their full potential. And if you're a good Scrum Master, you're cultivating an environment of trust, right, within a team where team members feel valued and supported. That whole emotional intelligence part, connect with the individuals at a personal level and help them excel, right? Good Scrum Masters don't wake up every morning wondering how they're going to make themselves better. They wake up in the morning wondering how they're going to make the team better. So if they're not focused on how they're helping the team members excel, they're missing the point. So these are some of the mantras I would suggest to them.
Thank you, Ken. It was wonderful having you for this discussion. And there are so many takeaways that I am taking away from this discussion. I'm sure the participants or the audiences are also going to enjoy this discussion.
Well, I very much appreciate taking the time to interview me. This was very enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you once again, and I look forward to catch up with you in future as well.
I look forward to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.